We are about to take a deep dive into Halloween Horror Nights 2002 Islands of Fear with scrapped icons, Marvel, Jurassic Park, and most notably, the first year of Horror Nights coming to Islands of Adventure.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a body by the toe. If he hollers, cut him low. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
In September of 2001, the overall attendance of both Halloween Horror Nights and Universal dropped dramatically due to the tragedy of 9/11. So Universal had a big idea in 2002. They were going to move their already famous Halloween Horror Nights to Islands of Adventure, creating the Islands of Fear. This year of Halloween Horror Nights had 5 different haunted houses: Maximum Carnage, Scary Tales 2, Fear Factor, Project Evolution, and Scream House. First, we have Maximum Carnage. Venture into the labyrinth-like secret hideout of the malevolent Carnage, an insane criminal with incredible alien powers whose only focus is mindless destruction. You would enter this house from the right side of the Incredible Hulk coaster. Inside, you would find various villains, such as Scream, Mephisto, and Carnage himself. This house had many rooms, with things like lasers pointing at guests, representing villains using them as target practice, a revolving tunnel, a waterfall behind a chain link fence, and the final room was a nuclear reactor. Our next house is Scary Tales 2. Step into the pages of the grimmest fairy tales ever told, where nobody lives happily ever after. Guests would enter into the house through a facade that was a giant, demon-like creature with a monocle and sharp teeth. After entering in through the mouth of the facade, you would find yourself in the midst of childhood dreams and stories twisted in dark ways. You'd enter rooms that were covered in white and black stripes, with scare actors blending into the walls and jumping out when you'd least expect it. You would walk right into the Red Riding Hood story, but this time it was different. You'd find the werewolf lying in bed, and then Grandma would jump out from the side holding the wolf's head in her arms. There was also a room that there was a man reciting nursery rhymes with a creepy, demented twist and eerie music as you walked through the house. Imagine a place where your greatest fears become reality. Feel your way through absolute darkness in rooms crawling with insects, snakes, spiders, worms, rats, and more. That's what awaited you in the Fear Factor house. This house would be located in the Thunder Falls Seasonal Restaurant, a restaurant located in the Jurassic Park area. Rooms in this house featured snakes, spiders, worms, intestines, and even the rat lady, because these were what people feared. As you entered some of the rooms, there would be things like thin strings hanging from the ceiling, simulating actual spider webs. There would be pitch black rooms with hanging hair covered in goo. There was also a bridge that would randomly drop 2 inches. Other rooms had things like stuffed fish with a really bad smell. There was also a room featuring the wall crushing effect, a man spinning around in a room vomiting, and the finale was a series of 4 air guns that scare actors would shoot at guests. Now we move on to Project Evolution. Deep within the jungle, a top-secret genetic experiment has gone horribly wrong, creating hideous mutant half-human, half-dinosaurs. Once guests entered this house, they would find their way into a ruined Jurassic Park base. Inside, a Triceratops, made to look in distress by strobes, appeared behind a door. Various bloodied-up workers would beg the guests to run from the carnage going on inside, including Dr. Burton, the man responsible for these horrors. Guests would encounter a Dilophosaurus containment area, an area with a lot of bushes where velociraptors would pop out. At some point, you would start encountering the man-dinosaur hybrids, waiting for you to be their next meal. And at the end of the house, you would find out the terrible fate of Dr. Burton. He was hung by the dino men he created. And the final house from this year is Scream House, the first house of the caretaker. There's something disturbing about this small town mortuary. The bodies just don't want to stay dead, and they don't want you to leave alive. Guests would enter the queue under a small sign that read, "Scream House, your time has come." After making your way through the facade, which was a burnt-down 2-story Victorian manor, you'd enter different rooms containing things like one of the canes measuring you for your coffin, a zombie lunging at you, an autopsy room filled with blood and body parts. After this, you'd find a freezer with more body parts, but a scare actor would be controlling a single arm that would grab for you. The final room, you would enter the mausoleum, which had an amazing scare. The caretaker would beckon you down a hallway, but at the last second, you'd realize that it was simply a mirror, and the caretaker was right behind you, and he would chase you out of the house. The house would prove to be very popular with guests and would win House of the Year award for 2002. It would also receive a revamped sequel the following year, Scream House Revisited. That house would remain largely similar to this one, using many of the same scenes and scares, and was even located in the same soundstage. The Islands of Fear had 5 distinct scare zones, the first being Treeks and Foons. In this scare zone, you'd find yourself face to face with the Treek and Foon characters themselves. These characters were made to smile all the time, and they served the caretaker. This scare zone plagued the once childish Toon Lagoon. Up next, we have the Island of Evil. This scare zone would be featured in the Lost Continent area of the park, which was located between Jurassic Park and Seuss Landing. The area had 3 sections: a medieval village, a bazaar, and the ancient ruins. This scare zone would feature a creature called the Nightmare, ruling over a kingdom filled with evil creatures such as orcs and centaurs. We have Jurassic Park Extinction. The power is out, the gates are down, the dinosaurs are loose in the park, and there's something very strange, very deadly stalking you as well. Roaming the streets were various dino men. Some were regular men with dinosaur heads, and others were complete fusions of the two. The story goes, a mad scientist named Dr. Burton mixed human and dinosaur DNA to create human-dinosaur hybrids. This scare zone would be located in the Jurassic Park area of Islands of Adventure. Now we come to the final scare zone, Island Under Siege. The superheroes have all been defeated. Now you're trapped on a decaying, lawless island under siege by the minions of the most vicious supervillain of all, Carnage. Under the leadership of Carnage, the Marvel villains had destroyed the superheroes, and signs of that were everywhere. Allegedly, though unconfirmed, Thor's hammer laid on a crater in the ground, Captain America's blood-stained shield hung on Doom's tower, Spider-Man's webbing was everywhere, and Iron Man's helmet had been stolen. Villains such as Crossbones, the Wrecking Crew, and Bloody Policeman roamed the streets. Even though this scare zone was a huge hit, Marvel got angry with Universal, saying that if kids came to the event and saw their favorite superheroes dead, they would stop buying comic books. Along with houses and scare zones, this year had 3 shows. The first one is the Fountain of Evil. The show was the talking fountain featured in the Lost Continent turned evil. Red lights would shine on it, and it would make darker jokes and curse guests. Next we have Studio 666. Gather all your friends and dance the night away as the hottest night spot in the land of the dead comes alive with pulsating music and high energy. Next up, we have Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. This year, there were actually 2 shows that played. The first was reportedly so unpopular that they had to make a new one. The second version of the show would make fun of that year's pop culture in different ways, with characters showing up such as Green Goblin, Britney Spears, Dr. Evil, Will Smith, Mini-Me, Gandalf, Spider-Man, Darth Vader, Eminem, and more. Much of the success of this year's Halloween Horror Nights can be traced to the high visibility marketing efforts revolving around the caretaker. His popularity was not just welcomed by Universal, but it was a sigh of relief because he was a last-minute substitute for an evil little girl. Originally, they came up with Cindy, a possessed little girl with a piercing stare and an air of mystery about her. The Islands of Fear were supposed to be her playground, and all the houses tied into her story. But sadly, there were real horrors going on in the world. There was a series of children being kidnapped, so Universal wanted to be sympathetic, and they dropped Cindy at the last second and chose a random character that they were going to have roaming the streets and created a backstory for him and came up with the caretaker. Even though all the houses and scare zones tied into Cindy's backstory, they were able to make quick changes and tie them into the caretaker. Even though Cindy was scrapped for 2002, there's too much backstory that Universal came up with for her not to be used again. I hope you guys liked today's video. I'm a huge fan of Halloween Horror Nights and we'll be doing deep dives into a bunch of different years of Halloween Horror Nights. So if there's a specific year you want to see, make sure you comment down below and let me know. If you like this content, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this. It'll help out the video so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.